I'm delighted to continue the conversation with Savitha and Shrikant on their Bharatanatyam short film, The Descent. So, one thing about Descent that we would never forget is the outdoor location. It was mesmerizing and a treat for the eyes. And anyone who has watched Descent can go on and on about it, but we would rather like to hear it from you. What do you have to say about the location and why did you pick it?
So there were two locations in Descent. The first location, you see the protagonist dancing with two others. Now, we had originally planned for that location to be in an archaeological site, but for reasons beyond our control, that was not to be. So we had to come upon a location really quickly. And we ended up going to this town where there was this abandoned house, and we had to paint the walls of the house and use that for that location. The other location was a different story. We had done our research. In fact, we had originally thought of going and shooting that particular sequence in a place called Ramanagara, which is where Sholay was shot. And this was something that Shrikant really wanted for the short film.
See, we were looking for a certain starkness which resonated with the mood of the protagonist. And one thing I was struck by was that the sequences of the dacoit, played by Amjad Khan, were shot in a certain location in Ramanagara. When we actually went to Ramanagara, we discovered that actually picking up the equipment and going to that spot is going to be difficult. So we drove past Ramanagara and we came across this place, which was the Twin Peaks that you see, which we call the Descent Hill. I don't know what it's called in reality. But the minute we saw it, there were two large peaks which were silhouetted against the sky with nothing else around it. So it was immediately the two of us thought that, yeah, this is it. We're doing it here. And that's how that second location came about. I think it worked like magic once we did it.
So, the music and poetry that we heard in Descent was outstanding. How did the music evolve and what inspired you to write this poetry, sir?
So, the poetry tells a short story in itself. There is a bird in a cage, and one day the bird finds that the cage door is open. He says, okay, maybe this is the day I have found my freedom. So he slowly walks out of the cage. When he comes out of the cage, he realizes there's a cat on the other side of the room, which is not moving, which is just sitting there and watching this bird. And then the bird realizes that he has no wings to fly. That, to me, is the state of mind of the protagonist, which is why that poem was written, right? I chose to write it in Hindi because I think it worked better in that language than it did in any other language. The music itself was formed out of the raga Purya Dhanashri. I think that raga depicted the free fall and the depression that I wanted to portray in the best possible manner. Now, Purya Dhanashri is an interesting raga. It can be used to make a love song. It can be used to make a scene like Descent. It lends itself to various modes depending on how you use it. And it's one of my favorite ragas. I've always wanted to use it in one of our productions, so this was my chance. So I said, okay, let's do it in this one.
The Shehnai loop in Descent, the music, still gives me chills.
The next question is for the two of you. In retrospect, if you were to remake Descent, would you do it any differently?
Well, I know I work in streams of consciousness, so some of the choreography that happened on that hill on that day was impromptu. So I'm not sure if I were to redo that, what the final effect of Descent would be. So the answer to your question is no. What about you, Shrikant?
I don't think I'd want to change a thing about it. And that's true of all projects that I do. Actually, I like the certain rawness that comes with the way we do it at that particular time. You rethink those raw parts and make them more polished, more sophisticated. Somewhere, I think you lose some honesty in that process. I think what happened that day is exactly how I would have wanted it to be. I would not attempt to remake it. I would just leave it the way it was. It's perfect.
Thank you for taking us behind the scenes of Descent. The journey was as fascinating as Descent was. Namaskaram.